And we're
Hi.
live.
Yeah. Hi, Facebook people. Cindy and Josh here, and we're coming at you to talk more about marriage. But first off, how was your weekend? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Stuff
We did.
yourself.
He smoked a turkey. It's awesome. If you have the opportunity to do that, it's so good. Smoke a turkey. It's amazing. I got to see my cousin that I hadn't seen in like 8 years or something, and it was amazing. We just had a great weekend. Yeah, so hopefully all of you guys had a great weekend too. But we're here. We're hoping to get back on schedule and post every Friday, but here we are on Sunday, and that's okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about our second thing we feel that is so important in our marriage, and that's communication. So I'm going to let you take it away, because he has notes, people. Notes. He's that awesome.
Well, I had to write down some notes because our last video, I misquoted some things. I kept talking about the importance of marriage and referencing Ephesians 4 when I should have been referencing Ephesians 5. I was off a little bit. And,
I knew it. I could feel it.
My memory's not the best, and so I figured maybe if I'm going to be, giving advice on this stuff, I should make sure I'm accurate.
We're all very ashamed of you right now.
Anyway, communication should be a no-brainer, because if people aren't talking, then things aren't moving forward. Probably the biggest thing when it comes to communication is communicated expectations. I think I've mentioned it in some of our other videos, is that expectations that are not communicated are expectations that are not going to be met. And each person has their own expectations in a marriage, and we have to be able to find a way to voice that. And as she'll probably get into a little bit, there's communication, but there's proper communication, because how can you communicate?
Poorly.
Poorly, yeah.
And there's a lot of subtle things that are communication that really aren't verbal, but I remember we went to this church in Poolsville, like really quick side story. And we did a marriage thing, if you remember. Marriage. And they were talking about like husband continually wouldn't put the clothes in the basket. And he put it next to the basket. And I kind of was like, well, it's not just about like not doing something. It's communicating that you're not valued. Like the housewife who stays at home and does all the laundry. And if you're not taking that one step to pick up after yourself, that you're communicating, like not verbally, but you're showing them, I don't value your job, and I'm just going to throw my stuff everywhere. Yeah. So anyway, there's other forms of communication. But
and the Bible does talk about communication in various forms, and I wrote down a couple things that I try to remember. Colossians, Paul tells us, let your speech always be with grace. The idea of making sure that when you're going to communicate something, even if it's something that might involve a little bit of critical or criticism, that you want to inject a little bit of grace in there, because I hope when someone brings criticism into my life, that they do it gracefully also. He talks about in Ephesians, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth. An idea that we can communicate things with each other, and we should be careful with the words we choose, because even though the old adage is sticks and stones may break my bones, but words won't hurt me, we know that there's such a thing as verbal abuse, and we don't want to be partakers in that. And lastly, the one thing I wanted to share, I could easily go into James, and because James talks about our tongue being the ability to set the whole world on fire, but one of the most, influential scriptures for me is the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 12, where he says, that which proceeds out of the mouth is that which fills the heart. And so that's what I tell my kids, and I tell my kids that for a reason, is because I said, if you're talking filthy talk, that means you have a filthy heart, and we need to work on our hearts. And if our hearts are in the right place, then our communication is going to be in the right place, and it'll be productive and beneficial and building up rather than tearing down. And it's not hard. It's not hard when you're angry. It's not hard in the moment at times, but by practicing and doing those things and keeping those things in mind, we can build up a better mode of communication with one another. Not that saying that we don't have our issues.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, we totally do. But that's kind of why we're able to look at this and be like, oh, yeah, that works. Or, oh, yeah, that over there doesn't work.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, there was this reel on Instagram where this mom was like, pointing at the words or whatever. It's like, everybody keeps asking me why I'm yelling. It's because you're not listening. And like...
That's an important part of communication too, though. It is listening.
I know, but like if you keep yelling and they're still not listening, something's not working. Like,
it's not effective communication.
It's not effective communication. And I know she was talking about her kids. Like, most adults don't go around yelling at each other all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to tell your spouse something, like something, you talked about criticism, and the reality is we critique each other all the time. I mean, like, and I don't like the way you put dishes in the dishwasher, and he doesn't like the way that I fill up the sink with dishes. He will take them all out.
Right?
Yeah, they are pet peeves, and we choose our battles, I think. So he'll just pick the dishes up out of the sink and take them out. And he doesn't say anything to me because it's not going to benefit either of us if you say anything. So that's another thing you have to realize is, what am I getting out of this? If I sit here and be like, you did the dishes wrong, what am I going to get out of it? I'm going to get somebody who's not going to ever do the dishes again. Yeah. And that's not okay. And it really serves no purpose. So we do...
And for someone who's like a type 1 like me, if you've ever looked at the Enneagram thing, it's difficult. It's difficult because in your mind there's one way to do something. There's one way and it's the right way, and even if it's not the right way in your mind, it's the right way. And so that's where that grace comes back in, right? Is you have to interject the grace, and you have to understand, okay, my way isn't the only way, even though I feel like it's the right way. It's not the only way, and I need to give some leeway there. So
yeah,
and that comes down to the communication, and I think that brings up another good point that hopefully not too many people deal with, and that's passive aggressive communication. That was me for several years, and fortunately I've gotten away from that. But passive aggressive it's toxic. It is toxic, and
yeah.
I've gotten to a point right now where I'd rather someone be aggressive with me than passive aggressive, because at least I know where they're standing, right? But that's the important thing about communication, is making sure it's edifying, it's not toxic.
Yeah, over communicate. I think over communicating is super important. One of the first thing that pops up to my head is saying thank you. We say it a lot. Like, I think if you were in our house, you'd probably be like, they say it way too much. And we teach our kids to say it a lot as well. So every time we have a meal, the kids have been taught that they say thank you for the meal. So every dinner, even almost every breakfast, if they don't like it. And that's something we started years ago, because it even if they didn't like the meal, it turned into like a complaint. And then they felt like they could just, I don't know, like they were bothered by it, and it just felt, I don't know, it wasn't good. So we've trained them to say thank you at meals. And so we do that all the time. So when they're done with their chores, I tell them thank you. They have to do their chores. It's not really an option, but I still appreciate it. So I really do like to, and I try to be very grateful for everything that Josh does. And it's one of the things that's in love and respect. Part of respecting your spouse is like being grateful for the things that they do. So I value that he goes to work every day. I value that you come home from work, because that's a choice. He could not come home from work. He could go to a bar. He could do other things, really. Yeah. But you choose to come home. And so I'm always grateful, even though I feel like it
reminds me of a riddle.
Okay.
The riddle is what's said too much, but what's not said enough.
It's from a song. Snow Patrol, great song.
I thought it was a riddle, but anyway, which is I love you, and in that case, saying I love you, what's the better way to go? To say it too much or not say it enough? And in reality, it's better to say it too much. And we say I love you every time we get off the phone, before I leave for work, and sometimes it is over communicated, but it's definitely necessary at times too.
So communicate, but try to communicate in such a way that it's kind. you know.
Edifying, building up,
yeah,
not tearing down. And sometimes that means, you know, removing yourself from the situation if you need to. It's better.
That's what I do. I'm like, I need to be by myself for a little bit.
And you have to respect those boundaries. You know, while I've over the years have helped her communicate more, I also have begun to understand that there are certain boundaries and there are certain time frames, and you can't push yourself upon someone to communicate, to force them to communicate. There is a time where, yes, you know, we can't go to sleep, we can't go to bed angry, so we need to communicate this, but you still got to give someone time to process some things and get a hold of their emotions so they're talking more you know, productively.
Yeah. This is a really, like, we could probably talk for hours. I think
We're
everybody,
already too long.
I know. I think everybody could really talk about this and like give personal stories of miscommunication or how they communicated poorly, or how, you know, we could give tips on how to communicate specific things, and we could talk for hours about it, but we don't want to do that. We really just want to make sure that you take from this that when you're communicating to your spouse, even your kids, like, do it in such a way that it builds them up.
Here's a tip for you. You know,
oh boy,
a parenting hack, right? You know, it's pretty easy to yell at your kids when you're angry. You know, it's more effective at getting your kids listen. You get really close and you whisper to them. And that really gets their attention.
Yeah, this is kind of scary. So cool. All right. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. Well, hopefully that was helpful, and we'll see you hopefully Friday. Bye.
Bye.